Wei Wuxian, surrounded by these overly enthusiastic arms, found himself squeezed and jostled, amidst vibrant garments and a cloud of perfumes that made him sneeze repeatedly. By the end of the morning, his nose was red and swollen, and he hadn't managed to say a single word to Lan Qiren. After the morning lesson, this flock of girls began to flutter around the elegance room, feigning modesty while eagerly listening for any sounds from inside. They were all hoping to create a romantic, unexpected encounter when Lan Wangji finished meeting the girls and stepped out for a breath of fresh air, as expected. Wei Wuxian, passing by, was once again pushed against the wall, nearly trampled into the ground by a sea of slender, graceful legs. Amidst the chaos, Wei Wuxian managed to escape back to his residence. Once he returned to his room, he shut himself in. It was not until the early morning of the third day that Zhang Cheng saw a sneaky figure slipping out in the dim light before dawn. Wei Wuxian never paid much heed to minor setbacks, being full of clever ideas. He would find another way if one plan failed. Having created all sorts of strange and peculiar talismans since he was a child, he spent an entire night this time working on an invisibility talisman. Though it was termed an invisibility talisman, it wasn't that powerful to completely erase a person's presence. It was just a small trick to obscure one from vision. Once this talisman was applied to the person, it acted like a constantly changing background screen, blending the individual's entire body seamlessly with the colors and patterns of their surroundings, making it difficult for anyone to distinguish them. Poor Lan Qiren did not find himself silently tagged with the talisman early in the morning, normally treated with utmost respect. He walked down the path that day without receiving a single nod of acknowledgement. The Lan clan disciples all walked straight past him without a second glance, despite clearing his throat repeatedly to catch their attention. Those who turned their heads only took a quick look and continued on their way. At that moment, several charming girls from who knows where appeared, making their way around the lattice window wall. They greeted the boys with smiles and polite bows. The boys' gazes were instantly drawn towards them, sweeping right past Lan Qiren's nose to lock onto the girls instead. Blushing, their handsome faces turned a rosy shade, and they returned the greetings clumsily before hurriedly pushing and jostling each other to leave, eliciting giggles from the girls. Lan Qiren was furious, stomping his feet in anger. He thought to himself that these young rascals had become so enamored with the plethora of beauties around them in recent days that their minds had wandered, and their audacity had grown. They no longer even gave their elders the respect they deserved. Thinking that there was still a morning class to attend shortly, Lan Qiren held back his temper for a while, muttering curses in his heart. Upon reaching the orchid room and seeing the familiar crowded scene, he felt a bit relieved by the familiarity. However, as soon as he started lecturing, the students below appeared bewildered. The girls, eagerly waiting to impress the teacher again today, were surprised to hear his voice but not see him. When they looked toward the main seat at the front of the hall, they seemed to catch a vague glimpse of something moving. Rubbing their eyes and looking again, all they could see was a faint shadow. This shadow, however, unmistakably had Lan Qiren's dry tone and his tedious, lengthy lecture content. The girls all thought they had studied too hard the night before and felt a bit dazed early in the morning. Listening to the voice but unable to locate its source, they looked around blankly, moving half a beat slower than usual. When it came time to answer questions, they stammered without looking at the teacher. They seemed unsure whether they were attending class or daydreaming, behaving sluggishly as if bewitched. amidst the group of bewildered gazes. Wei Wuxian stood out as particularly bright-eyed. He maintained an enthusiastic focus on the teacher throughout, being the first to raise his hand with unwavering determination. Initially, Lan Qiren decided to ignore him, but eventually, he couldn't stand the confused looks on everyone else's faces. Reluctantly, he called on Wei Wuxian. Wei Wuxian immediately stood up and rattled off the correct answer in a rapid-fire manner, his bright eyes respectfully fixed on the teacher. Lan Qiren finally bestowed his first approving look of the day and couldn't help but feel a sense of relief and a touch of suffering finally rewarded sentiment. He found Wei Wuxian more agreeable and felt a bit gratified by the promising student in front of him. Satisfied with his efforts, Wei Wuxian was called upon frequently and always provided answers eagerly, earning the favoritism of teacher Lan. Originally, the plan was going smoothly, but the trouble came when Wei Wuxian, in his overconfidence, forgot to remove the talisman from Lan Qiren after class. As Lan Qiren walked along, people around him behaved like headless flies, constantly bumping into him. He felt like a spinning top, pulled in all directions, nearly losing his balance. It took great effort to stand steady as he moved through the crowd, getting elbowed and having his feet stepped on repeatedly, unable to bear it any longer. He erupted, standing in front of a row of lush bamboos. He started scolding a group of innocent boys loudly with great intensity. The boys looked around for a while, only to see the bamboo shaking slightly. They could hear Lan Qiren's voice listing out the Lan clan's family rules, correcting them with stern righteousness. The boys wondered silently if the bamboos in Yunshan had absorbed so much from their daily routines that they could now automatically recite the family rules and reprimand people. The tone was unmistakably Lan Qiren's classic style, vividly lifelike as if he were present. After a moment of shock, the youths mustered their courage, drawing their swords and wielding their demon-slaying and exorcism tools towards Lan Qiren's face. The eventual outcome of this incident was tragic for the youths, who each received 100 strokes of the ruler as punishment. Wei Wuxian's clever trick was thoroughly exposed, leading to an even grimmer fate for him, 300 strokes of the ruler. In front of the Lan clan's ancestral hall, amidst the rising and falling screams, Wei Wuxian's voice was particularly penetrating, echoing throughout the entire mountain. Meanwhile, in the elegance room, the atmosphere was refined and pleasant. The girl's parents were enthusiastically extolling her virtues. As the conversation progressed, the girl, looking shy, stole glances at Lan Wangji, whose handsomeness appeared otherworldly. Her heart raced uncontrollably as she tightly clutched her small handkerchief. In a soft, humble voice, she spoke words of modesty. On the other side, under the urging of the Lan clan elders, the usually reticent Lan Wangji was compelled to utter a few polite phrases in response. He praised the girl's erudition and modesty, saying that her parents' compliments were true. Lan Wangji had just managed to say a couple of polite words when Wei Wuxian's agonized screams echoed from afar. Among the screams were some incoherent, resentful remarks, such as, "You Lan clan people are cruel and inhumane, bullying the weak. I won't marry, isn't that enough? Do you think I, as a man, want to compete with a girl for a husband? Do you think I'm willing? I withdraw. I'll pack my things and go back home tonight. In this life and the next and the one after, I won't dare provoke anyone with the surname Lan," and so on. As soon as the blind date ended, Lan Wangji went to Lan Qiren's residence, coincidentally. Zhang Fengmian was coming out from inside, looking very displeased and angry. Lan Wangji greeted him with a bow, and Zhang Fengmian looked at him for a moment as if he wanted to say something but then stopped, shaking his head and sighing before leaving. As Lan Wangji stepped into the front hall, a yellow talisman fell in front of him. He picked it up and saw that the talisman had intricate, unusual characters drawn in cinnabar ink with vigorous strokes. When he looked up, he saw an expression on his uncle's angry face that he had never seen before, as if Lan Qiren was so furious he might go to the heaven immediately. Lan Qiren smiled, telling him the amazing behavior of Wei Wuxian these days. Lan Wangji listened silently and looked at the yellow talisman in his hand, incredulously saying, "Can this talisman really achieve invisibility?" Lan Qiren replied. "I have heard of young Master Wei's intelligence and wisdom. It seems the rumors are true." Hearing this, Lan Qiren, who had just managed to calm down a bit, exploded in anger again. Intelligence? Wisdom? All just heretical tricks. Absolutely incorrigible. Lan Qiren quickly tried to soothe him with gentle words. Glancing sideways, he noticed Lan Wangji sitting aside, flipping the scroll listing the names of potential matches all the way to the end and staring thoughtfully at Wei Wuxian's name. Lan Qiren said, "Young Master Wei indeed lacked decorum today. However, his critique of the collection of elegance the other day, I found his insights quite unique and not without merit. Wangji, don't you agree?" Seeing his elder brother's curious gaze, Lan Wangji silently closed the scroll and coldly replied, "No." Lan Qiren pointed at Lan Qiren, his hand trembling as he said, "Qiren, have you been bewitched by his deceitful words? How could you even defend that boy? Reason. What reason? Utterly ignorant and presumptuous." In the end, still not appeased, Lan Qiren continued to harshly curse for a while longer. "Outrageous! Arrogant! Extremely arrogant! Infuriating! Extremely infuriating!" Lan Qiren had no choice but to agree with his uncle, and gently, with great difficulty, managed to calm Lan Qiren down. Meanwhile, Lan Wangji quietly tucked the invisibility talisman into his robe.